real quick. I had it all timed up this time, so hopefully it'll be quick. Oh, it's trying. Okay. I think I got it. All right. Now I just have to find you guys again. Got you on two screens. Got to find the live one. All right. Let me let our guest speaker in really quick. And then I'll get back to roll call. Okay. So Ken Whitco, I have not heard from him. James Hairston.
Here.
And Mark Pila.
Here.
Alan Hart.
Here.
Ray Dotson. Haven't heard from him. Mark Terry.
Here.
Todd Wolf. He's here. I got Karen Ferreira.
Here.
And then Teresa King, wasn't sure she's going to make it or not. So, oh, and then we've got our guest speaker, Mary Dodsworth, in there. Sorry, I just saw her pop into the screen. And then we have Assistant Chief John Unfred. And we have, Fire Chief Scott with us. Sorry, Scott Adams.
Yeah, assistant. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. Yes. I left that off. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So we have a quorum. Could I hear, has everyone of you reviewed the minutes? Could I hear a motion to accept?
Move the minutes be accepted as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Are there any public comments?
I did not receive any.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move right into our speaker. Oh, I see Ray Dotson has joined us.
And I did forget that Councilmember Mike Branstetter is here. I apologize, sir.
Our speaker tonight is Mary Dodsworth, the Parks and Recreation Director, and talking about park safety. Mary, would you care to talk with us?
I'll jump right in. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. I see several familiar faces and a few that I haven't seen for quite some time. So, hi. I say Happy New Year, but it's February. Can you still say Happy New Year?
Yeah.
Look up on it. So, anyway, so those of you that that don't know me, anyway, my name's Mary. I'm your Parks and Recreation and Community Services Director. I've been with the city for 20 years. So I've seen a lot of changes in the city and seen a lot of growth in the city. And so I'm here to share a little bit about park safety. And so when Joanna invited me, I wasn't sure exactly what all of you were interested in learning about, but I did do a presentation and it's been like 4 or 5 years. So I thought if you're interested, there are some new folks on the board. Joanna, if you can let me share my screen, if I have just a couple of minutes, I'll kind of do a quick run through regarding just park safety in general. And then I think you did have some questions about maybe American Lake Park or some other specific areas. So what I thought I'd do is go over general safety with you so you can kind of see what we think about and what we do every day. And then I can answer any questions that you have. Does that sound like a good plan? Okay.
Let me know if that doesn't work.
Okay, so tell me if my presentation is
Yes.
if I'm in the
Yes.
right, just a second. Let's get here from the beginning. Do you see my presentation screen or do you see my notes?
Right now, we're
Safety
looking
at Lakewood Parks.
Yeah,
And so you don't see all the notes. Okay, good. So I'm on the right one. So I'm going to make my little mouse here work. So, do you see my little mouse moving around up here?
no,
No, we see your notes too. We see
Oh, you
the
see. Okay,
big
so I'll
screen and
just-
half notes. You got them split.
Okay, that's okay. I can just do this because I'm super high tech. I will change my president. Now, is that better?
There we go. Yes.
That sounds good. Okay, I'll move this out of the way too. So anyway, so let's just talk a little bit about safety in parks. So just starting off, we have a mission of creating a healthy and vibrant community where there's lots of opportunities for folks. And that's what we work on every day. So We have three main goals, and I'm really focusing on parks right now, even though recreation, we merge an awful lot with the activities and events. But we have three daily goals that we think of whenever we're just going out to do rounds, which is cleaning up garbage and making sure the parks are open and checking equipment, whether we're planning a special event or just taking care of our staff. But safe is our number one goal all the time. We think about staff safety, site safety, participant safety, visitor safety. Clean is our second one. We want it to be nice and sanitized and, good and accessible. And then if there's time, green. So safe, clean, and green is our motto. And we really think about that. It's simple. It seems simple, but it keeps everybody that's out doing their work on the same page and with a good mindset. So this is a park map, and many of you might not be familiar with all of the different park sites in Lakewood, but we have a variety of parks from throughout the community, from teeny little Primley Park, which is kind of Member Branstetter's favorite park, to quite large spaces like Fort Silicon Park. And so we really approach every site, again, with that same philosophy, safe, clean, and green. So the first thing is that there's something happening in a park that people believe is a safety issue, call 911. What we do, police can be responsive. They have a way of tracking and recording and actually doing something if something's happening that's a safety issue. People will give me a call. It'll be 3 days later and say, hey, I saw somebody at the park doing this. At that point, there's nothing I can do about it. Maybe make sure that it's been cleaned up or painted over or whatever the issue is. But I don't have any way of dealing with the individual or the situation. And so we really encourage people to call 911. That's your best response for a safety issue. The second thing that we do is we really look at our facility, crime prevention through environmental design. And I think you may have had some presentations on this in the past, but it's what we do so that we can make sure that, we can't be everywhere. We're not in the parks 24 hours a day. The police aren't in the parks all the time for us. And so what we can do is design parks and manage parks so that they can be safe as possible. And some of the elements of crime prevention through environmental design are SEPTED, if you're in the Cool Kid Club and you know the lingos. One is that you want to maintain parks so you can see them from the roads. So you don't want a lot of bushes or a lot of blockages that keep you from being able to see through the park to all the different spaces. Controlling access. If you can control access in and out, you can open and close gates. You can control the number of people that come and go. You can make sites secure temporarily if you're doing maintenance or activities in there that you don't want general public coming around. So controlling access is also a great way of providing safety. Lighting, landscaping, no blind areas, keeping areas so that they're safe to walk on. You'll see sometimes, our parks are closed at night, so we really don't light them up at night. Sometimes you'll see lighting on restroom buildings or facilities so that there's, you can see if anybody's creeping around the doors. Or you might see lighting like along Silicon Boulevard on the pathway that's at Fort Silicon Park. Again, so if people are walking from here to there on a pathway at night, they can see what's happening around them and we can see what's happening to them as well. Responding to vandalism right away, super important. One, it's a safety issue, but also vandalism has a way of growing if you don't take care of it right away. That goes along with graffiti. And then just bringing positive activities and events, activating sites, bringing responsible park visitors to parks really discourages negative activities. So some of the things we also do is site management. And so one of the things that we do is we have people in the park doing picnics, and you have a ball field, a group doing maybe doing a family reunion. Then you have a baseball tournament happening in another area. You've got people flying drones, someone walking their dogs on leash. We've got maintenance workers, we've got irrigation systems, and then we have capital projects. People are actually having to do some construction. Sometimes this is all happening at the same time, at the same place. And so really managing when people are coming and going, where they're at, making sure that the site that they're using is safe, making sure that compatible activities are either next to each other, or if they're not compatible activities, then you don't put them right next to each other. So again, site management is a big part of what we do every day in our larger parks, especially for those organized activities. to keep people and areas safe. And then there's things like park rules. We have a park code that tells you what you can and you can't do there. We put signs everywhere. Our police department loves signs because then they believe that they've done their due diligence to inform people of what's happening. And so then they can remind people or write tickets for people if they're doing something naughty. We have general rules, and then we have special area rules, depending on, again, on the site. And it all winds back to our park code, and that is done by ordinance. And so that tells you if you're doing something that's like a infraction or a misdemeanor. And anyway, so we have park rules and park signs. And then we do things like inspections. We do daily rounds. I mentioned that. That's when we're at the parks, and it's basically opening, closing facilities, checking restrooms, checking swing sets and benches to see if there's anything dangerous or that's been broken or vandalized. And so we do that on a daily basis. We inspect all of our playgrounds once a month and record that to make sure, we do get calls and people let us know what's going on, and we respond to those as fast as we can. But we do inspect our playgrounds once a month to make sure that they meet our playground safety standards. There aren't any loose swings or any things that could cause a safety or dangerous issue. We treat things like pests. We have bees, we have wasps, we have rodents, we have other things that happen in the parks, and so we treat those as needed. And then again, if you call us and say there's something going on, there's a hole, there's a sinkhole, there's a pin sticking out of something, then we'll respond as soon as possible. And if we're notified about a safety thing, we generally, drop everything and take care of it right away, or we're usually on it within 24 hours. If it's something that we can't fix within 24 hours, because say we don't have the equipment or we don't have a way to fix it, then we may close an area down, typically sign it, take pictures so that we can prove that we closed it down and signed it until we can get there and get it fixed right away. And then you see all these chips here. Many of you maybe have been at a Park Appreciation Day event or a service club activity, but we, we'll chip down trees, but also we use chips in our playgrounds for safety. And then we do make capital improvements because there is safety issues that happen. Some are life cycle, like if a playground is worn out or an area it has a life cycle, we'll be fixing those. And those are things that we plan to do. That can also add capacity, so it gives people more things to do or more space to play. And it can also improve the property values. But again, we always look at safety as the number one reason why we're fixing things up. And then this is just an example to show you, those of you that remember Wahop Lake in the old days, around the trail around there, it was pretty unsafe, it was degraded, trip hazards. And now you can see, this is actually not the actual picture, but we've improved that, and it's a much safer and nicer place to go. Now, that isn't something that can happen overnight because that project in itself was over $1 million. And so it does take a while to write grants, generate revenue and resources to make those things happen. But the city has invested a lot of resources in parks over the last few years. And a lot of that is to fix, spaces that we've inherited or spaces that have had some life cycle issues that we fixed. And then you can see just some more pathways that we did. These are obviously older pictures. And then there were some questions about American Lake Park. So I just want to let you know we're doing a major restoration of the park. And these are some things that we're fixing because there are issues at the park. So one is the restroom building here is quite old. And this is a master plan of like the new site improvements. But currently when you come to the park, there's a giant restroom building right here that's hard to see. You can't see through it. So the shelter's on the back side of it. That means that someone can do, they can sleep back there. They can do naughty stuff back there and you can't see it from the road or from the parking lot. Also, it blocks the vision of other activities that are here in the park. Currently, we don't have ADA access to the water. And so from a safety perspective, that could be challenging if you have mobility issues. So we're going to be making an ADA accessible trail to get down to the beach so that everybody has access to it. We just replaced the playground last year, might be 2 years now. And so there's a new playground there with new surfacing. And so that's all been updated. We have a new picnic shelter here to add a place for people to gather. And then down here, I'm just showing you this a little close. You can see this is our path. And we're really going to be taking a look here down at the waterfront area. We had a big problem last year with kids on the docks, jumping into the boat launch area. So we moved the fence from here to this side. So you can't stop those kids from jumping off the dock because they're going to jump off the dock. They're going to knock the fence down to jump off the dock, or they're going to jump there. So that seemed to solve that problem pretty well. So when we do our final design for this site, we'll be taking a look at maybe some things that we can do to improve this area. So if people want to be in the water, we can make it safe for them to swim and play. There's also an access point here. We had a lot of problems last year with people breaking the fence, breaking the locks, coming through there, which again, then you've got people crossing into lines of traffic for boat launches. So we're going to be taking a look at that as well. And then the other issue that we had last summer was it was stinking hot outside. Harry Todd was closed because we were doing massive restoration there. So this park was packed. And so I'm just going to go back a second to show you some of the things that we'll be looking at doing from a temporary perspective is when we do, there's no way right now to really control access here because it's all wide open. But there may be ways that we can control access into the park. So you could either close the park if you needed to. You could maybe have some safety or security in there to count heads as you're coming through. So that you could limit capacity at the park because there's only so much space. When we had COVID, there were some general rules about number of people per square foot, but generally we don't have that rule, but there are capacity issues and you just can't get thousands of people in that park without it really starting to cause some safety issues. So we're kind of looking at that, but we'll be making some major improvements there and we hope to reduce some of the problems that were there. The city's also bought the land across the street up here. And so we're going to be starting construction there. Actually, I think it's going out to bid this week. We'll be looking at that at some overflow parking. This is a limited space in a parking lot when it's really, really, really hot. There's about 8 or 9 days a year where it's really a challenge down at this site. And people are all over the streets and parking. And so that would provide some overflow parking again to reduce that impact. We also just redid our parking lot before. There were lots of blind spots and now we have people parking so that you have some good circulation and ways of getting through. So again, that was a new environmental design idea of changing how we parked cars so we could get more cars in there, but also have better lines of sight so you don't have people backing into each other. So anyway, that is some of the other things we do is we have some seasonal support for safety. We've had lifeguards in the past. I'm not so sure how that's going to continue. We do field maintenance for our sports fields to make sure that they're safe. We have summer programs. We do fun things for kids in the park so that, again, they're having a safe supervised activity so that they can, have positive opportunities to do things instead of creating negative opportunities. We do traffic control and we have security depending on the activities and events. And so those are some things that help us have safety in the park. And then emergency response, Mother Nature can cause problems. So we're looking at, we look at our trees and if they're in a situation where they could cause a problem, we'll assess them with an arborist and there may be a reason to remove a tree if there's a danger or if something's happened during a storm, which happens at Port Steilacoom in some of our parks because we have a lot of old growth forest in our parks. We're fortunate to have that, but also storms can knock those things down. And again, if citizens let us know there's a problem, we use Lakewood 311 all the time. We check that daily, and that's a big part of our response. And then, of course, addressing vandalism. And then we have a lot of homeless encampments that occur. And so our staff are down there cleaning up those areas. We work with the police department and our behavioral health folks so that we can try and provide opportunities for those folks that want to take advantage of that. And there's an awful lot of people that don't. And so those ones, we try and move them along and then we have to go in there and clean up their mess. And it's not always very much fun. So what are our goals? Safe, clean, green. That's what we do. Our goal is to keep everyone safe and we do it all the time. It's on our minds all the time. So I'm happy now to answer your questions. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see my face and I can see your faces. And so are there any questions? That's kind of park safety in a nutshell. So
Mary, I have one.
yes.
Yeah, so I see a lot of improvements being done to American Lake, for obvious reasons, the larger park, larger lake area. But I'm over on Lake Steilacoom, and in the past, I have launched my boat over at Edgewater,
Yeah.
which is right next to where people play and swim and rope swing and kayaking and everything. And it gets a little bit hairy or dicey at times when I'm trying to put a boat in the water on a very steep ramp.
Yes.
As I try to put the boat in there, and then I've got people kayaking behind me, swimming around me as I'm trying to launch this boat. So it's really kind of a bad idea to have a boat launch, a very small boat launch right next to a swimming hole, basically. So that's been a concern of mine in the past there. And then throw in the occasional stumps that are basically in the path as you're pulling the boat in and out. So there's a lot of issues there for the boat owners. That's one of the issues. And then also the activity I watch out on the lake at times. In the past, I've seen quite a few people actually out there. Surfing is a big thing now, and people actually surfing with no jackets on. I guess maybe they compare it to surfing at the beach. However, they're out there, they get on their boards and they don't wear jackets and stuff like that. In the past, as part of the Steilacoom Lake Club, we put out a flyer that addressed safety and some of the issues with going the right direction on the lake and everything. So basically, boater safety issues out on the lake, but also reminding the boaters they have a responsibility to drive their boat in the right direction, far enough away from the shoreline. And just make sure their boat's marked and people have their jackets, especially if they're being towed, a jacket on and stuff. So, but going back to the Edgewater area, though, that's an accident waiting to happen. So,
I'll address a couple of your questions. Those are great points, Mark. Thanks for sharing those. First is Edgewater Park. It is really the only really true public access point on Lake Steilacoom, and so it's an important space. And it's probably the park that has had the least amount of love over the last 20 years. I think it was one of my first park projects when I started. We updated that boat launch because it was in such bad shape. We worked with Fish and Wildlife because we were able to work with them. They had a plant in Lacey, so they did those cement to help do the launch. So anyway, that's how we built it. We did not, of course, have resources to rebuild the road, which you would need to do in order to fix that launch so it wasn't so short and steep. However, we made it as safe as we could with the resources that we have. Regarding the activities there, I agree with you 100%. There's just all kinds of use and no management. And so one of the things we talked about is capital improvements for safety as well as site management. So we did start working on a master plan. I think it was in 2019. It was before COVID because we hosted some meetings down there. We worked with the neighbors and there were a lot of concerns regarding parking and access and these kinds of things. Enforcement, all kinds of things. And so we did come up with some master plan options and then combine them after some community meetings to get to a place where we thought we could start looking at improvement. And there's some encroachment issues. There's some serious we talked with Public Works because we're looking at some parking and how much space do we have on the roads and corners and all that stuff. So there's some encroachment issues. So we're working out some issues with some encumbrances to the right of way, I'll say that. So we're working with some property owners to fix that. But I see us making some major improvements in there. We're starting a new grant cycle. And as you know, there's been lots of improvements in lots of other parks. And it does take a while to get those resources pooled. So we're going to be writing grants to do some of the master plan improvements. We have removed some trees there because we determined through this planning that there were some safety issues. So we had to remove some trees. We did get that rope swing taken down because that was, every time we take it down, they put it back up. We took it down, so we actually removed the tree where that was coming from because that was a real safety issue. So what the idea is to fix like one way, this is proposed, it hasn't been totally vetted all the way, but to have that road be a one way so that there's room for parking on one side, so you don't have that cross back and forth. And that includes enforcement from our police department. The police department does all of the water safety on the water We don't have control over that. In fact, I have no enforcement ability. So just know that when stuff happens, we don't have enforcement, but the police department or our police water unit does go out there occasionally and deal with folks that are not acting appropriately on the water. And so that's a resource that John could probably tell you a little bit more, but they do a lot of work with us on American Lake. And so there's work that they can do out there. And Senator, I think her name's Ryu. She's up from up in the north by, I think, Mount Vernon area. She is actually doing legislation that's making it required to have personal flotation devices on things like paddle boards and on non-motorized activities where we think that there's some safety issues. So we are working on the safety issues down there. And by working on, I'm circling back to Edgewater, it would be ways of putting in like a dock. So when you're launching your boat, have a better way of controlling that area. It would creating maybe zones so you don't have people swimming in the middle of your boat launching area. The stumps, that's kind of a rough one because I don't have control over removing those. It's an environmental issue. It's a Fish and Wildlife permit issue. And so it's kind of a state issue. So that's kind of a more complicated issue regarding the stumps in the water, and then the water level goes up and down. But we are going to be doing some work at Edgewater. It is going to get its turn. It'll make it much nicer and safer for people.
Just for the stump purpose, I understand the removal aspect that and the Fish and Wildlife game, but I would think it would be probably beneficial to the boat owners or anybody swimming out there that if the stumps were marked, whereas as I'm pulling in, I know I could see markers as I come in. And I know how to navigate around them. That would not require obviously the removal aspect there.
Sure.
If you're going to start designing and keeping the swimming aspect there next to where you're launching boats and stuff, I would recommend that maybe you buoy off or do some form of this is swimming, this is boating and stuff, and give the boater enough area to move. And I totally get the parking aspect. I've been down there and I kind of feel bad for the property owners there because as I'm coming in to try to just launch a boat and get out of there, there's people parked there probably illegally, I would say. And they're impeding the property owners there too, because they're parked all over down in that area and stuff. So I get that. So maybe one way would work out, a one-way road would work out that way, but I don't want to get bogged down in the meeting over one little area of the entire city and stuff. So if there's something we could correspond on the side about this later on, I would be happy to do that. So we can move the meeting along.
Sure. And Mark, we are, as I said, we were sort of in the final design phase of a master plan when all of this and then COVID started. So we'll be bringing that back forward. We wouldn't just move forward with that. So there'll be more community conversation. And Joanna, you're welcome to send him my contact information, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you on the side regarding, I'm going to be actually gone the next 2 days, but after that, you can give me a email or a call, and I'm happy to chat with you more about it, and would value your ideas, especially if you're living down there and you're getting to see it in first person. So
thank you.
Any other questions?
Is Alan, I actually have two. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mary, good to see you. If you took a line and drew it across, say, 2020 and took the last 2 years and the time before, are there any areas that have increased in complexity or take things like graffiti, destruction, trash, maybe even homelessness? Is there anything that has really surfaced in a higher frequency or a higher amount in the last couple of years?
Well, first of all, our parks, when everybody was closed during COVID, parks were open. We were closed, everybody's closed for about a couple months, but so our parks were really slammed full of people. People were using them for mental health and to get away and to have a place to go that was safe because you could separate from others. We didn't do a lot of organized activities, still haven't, but so just general park use increased like crazy. And so that in itself, I would say we've seen a lot more of homeless encampments, especially over at like Wards Lake Park, which is on the east side of our community. That's kind of behind Lakewood Cinema. We've got, I think I've got 4 different grants to do that. So we have a couple $1 million we're going to be putting in there, and we're going to do a lot more of kind of opening the area up, keeping it natural. But we're seeing a lot of these homeless encampments. And so cleanup, that takes away from our regular day-to-day. Graffiti, I would say, has definitely gone up in the last, I'd say, well, we get it all the time, but I'd say the last year, and I don't know if it's because people were tired and bored or if we're getting more gang activity in our community. We just cover it when we see it. We take pictures of it and send it to the police department because they analyze it and track it in that fashion. But we cover it up. But I would say graffiti has increased a bit. But other than that, I'm just shocked at how much garbage people leave in parks. I mean, I have never been a litterer. I don't get it. I don't see how someone eats a Taco Bell lunch and just throws their bag on the ground, or they get a bucket of chicken and leave it sitting on the ground for the crows to get. I mean, to me, it's just astounding, but I still get shocked about things that probably shouldn't be. But you would not believe. So at American Lake Park in the summer, we generally will take 30, we have those big black 55-gallon drum bags. There's probably 30 to 50 bags of garbage that get taken out of that park. And that's not the garbage that's like just in the garbage cans and in the dumpsters. It's everywhere. So I would say littering, people are just, not respecting the space. These are gifts, right? These are public spaces that are really well maintained. I don't know if you go to our parks often. I mean, hopefully you do, but they're really well maintained on a general basis. And people are just throwing stuff on the ground. And that to me is very frustrating. So summer is obviously, different than fall and spring. And that's a big, big impact. So those are kind of the heaviest hitters right there.
Okay, thank you.
Karen, you had a couple questions.
They were just covered. Oh, except for one thing, what's the timeline on the ADA access to American Lake?
So we're putting that out for final design right now, which means we'll be hired. We did a master plan look at it. So I would say that if all goes as well and permitting should be on, because American Lake's a closed lake, so we don't have some of the fish issues. I would say we should be able to get started on construction on that part at the end of 2022 into 2023. So by next summer season, that should all be done.
Okay, thanks.
We won't start till after we certainly wouldn't start till after the summer because we would never shut a site down like that throughout the summer. That would be really difficult for us.
Right, understood.
Okay, do you happen to have the dates for Summerfest?
Sure. It's July 23rd and it'll be at Fort Silicon Park. And so it's going to be a great day with, car shows and food and activities. We're going to have a big live your best life passport to sports and arts and wellness. So there'll be all kinds of information and things for kids and families to do, tons of entertainment, international festival. Then we'll take over the stage from 6 to 9 and do a big Latinx entertainment. So we're really being intentional in making our programs are low and no cost, and also really reaching out to our whole community so that we can make sure that we're providing a safe and wonderful experience for everybody in our community, regardless of where you live or where you come from. And so we're really working hard on that. And we haven't had it for 2 years, so we're looking forward to bringing it back.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
I think Mark has a question. His hand's up.
Yeah, I've actually got 4 questions. You want them all at once or
Sorry, Mark.
individually?
Well, however you want to ask them. If you want to ask them all at once, and then I can try and address them, or you can do it one at a time, and I'll cover as best I can.
You mentioned that you're going to put an auxiliary parking lot across the street from the main park at American Lake. How are you going to protect pedestrians moving across that street?
I'm not exactly, well, there'll be a crosswalk that'll be connected to, I think, the traffic circle that's there, and Public Works Engineering is designing that. And so I don't know if they're going to have any crossing, head crossing, or I'll find out for you on that. They actually are just doing the final design, but I'll ask about that. I'm not exactly sure because they're designing and building that for us. And so I don't know. I'll have to check on that.
Yeah, the speeds get pretty high on there at times, and sometimes the vision to see who's going to be crossing the street there might be a little limited.
Sure. No, that's a great point. I'm sure that they've considered that because there's all kinds of site distance and rules regarding construction for streets, which I'm not necessarily specific to, but I'll find out from you. And also if they're, we've done other things like with our farmers market, and we're going to be doing over at Ward's Lake when we do an improvement is putting in one of those push, I don't know if it would work here, but where you push the button and you get some lights because there's a lot more kids and families crossing there on a regular basis. So, and I think that's a 3-lane road versus, or might even be a 5-lane road versus that is a smaller road, but I'll check on that for you and I'll send that back and someone can forward it to you guys. Okay. Second question.
They're doing yeoman work on Sealy Lake. What is going to be the conclusion there? Are they just cutting along the trail, or are they eventually going to do some trimming on the lake itself?
Great question. It's so fun to see you guys are actually out and about exploring some of the differences. So I didn't do, I have another presentation I do on park improvements, and that was included in there. So we've been working with a Pierce. So that's actually a Pierce County facility. So I don't know if you knew that. That's not a city park. It's a Pierce County facility next to the community center. But we did partner with them to do some improvements because there's just been a lot of different issues. So one of the outcomes was a lot of that trimming up, removal of vegetation and trimming up so you can see in there. It feels safer while you're being in there. Also making improvements around the trail so it's accessible. Also, I don't know if you've been out on the trail, but the backside of Big Lots and Hobby Lobby, that area used to be Kmart. There was so much vegetation and sort of shanties and old stuff there. We had to bring in a hazmat team, and they actually had to come in twice, and that's all been gutted. So you don't have so much, again, that unable to see, and then just all the garbage and stuff. So that's been cleared out. And then the big part that you'll see that you'll really notice is that when you go to Sealy Lake, you're at the community center, and then you have to go down that hill, and it's kind of sketchy down there. And then you go into the trail from below. So that is going to all get from kind of where the dumpsters are, where you first go to that auxiliary parking lot. That's all going to get gutted out. It's going to be made, that's going to be like the start of the trail, and it'll be turned into more open space. So it won't be that sort of, I'll just call it scary and sketchy, where you go down into that area because, it's uncomfortable and you don't know what's happening, and there's people parked there. So that whole entry area will be made more accessible, ADA accessible, as well as just from a safety factor. So you'll see that happening too. Our goal was originally to try and make the trail accessible year round. However, on the back side of it, it would entail a bunch of boardwalk and bridges that would have been really expensive and also hard to permit because the water flows through there. It's a retention pond. A lot of the lakes in our community are retention ponds. We just pretend they're lakes. So, so that area we thought, well, when we're there in the wintertime and the water flows over the backside of that trail, you see waterfowl and ducks and birds in there. And so we thought, well, maybe that will turn that into more of an interpretive educational moment where people could see, you can't get through the trail now, but why does it do that? And it talks about water flow and water retention and things. So, but yeah, you'll see, we have made quite a few improvements in there, and we'll continue to do that. But primarily the driveway entry point will be, or the parking lot entry point will be the real big major construction that you'll see. And that probably won't happen until late in 2022 because Pierce County is going to take the lead on that. And based on their work program, they didn't think they were going to have time to address it until later towards the end of this year because it's 2022 now.
Next question. How was the response to the reverse parade being at Stillicum? And how did it go?
Well, it was freezing cold. And so the people that drove were tired of sitting in their cars, but they had warmth. I have to say, it started say 4 to 8. And last year we did the reverse parade and it was from 6 to 8. And we actually extended it 2 hours because it was so popular. But again, traffic control was horrible. So we moved it to Fort Stillicum thinking that we'd have more staging area. And again, it's, people were so excited about coming. We had to close the back gate at 7, even though the event was till 8, just to let those people go through. And they got through and we started putting them around Wahop Lake just because there was so many cars. And so we're trying to get them off the roads. So the response was people obviously were happy that we had it there, but logistics, it was really tough to manage that many cars. That the site just is really, that's a hard thing to do. I have to say the people that were coming to the parade, I don't know if you all remember, but it was monsooning and freezing and horrible, horrible weather, except for at 2 o'clock, the clouds parted, the sun came out, and it was like, oh, and I'm like, thank you, God, because that's when people started setting up, and they all, the parade people that didn't cancel showed up and set their stuff up, and about 3:30, another monsoon came through, side winds, so people lost their tents, they lost their decorations, they were out there in their little cheerleading outfits and freezing, and they just rallied back and, spit tape, rubber bands, paper clips, they put their floats back together. And so, I mean, the people that were there, it was fantastic, and people worked really, really hard on their floats, but it was rough. And so I just bless those folks that came and stayed and worked and froze their buns off because it was cold. But seeing that is we are hopefully, we're past some of this COVID stuff where we'll be able to have a real parade next year back to where we did it. It'll be town center. It'll be coming down Gravelly Lake. It'll go through the Christmas tree. And so our goal is to bring the holiday parade back to the town center next year.
My final question is, I always have to ask about Blueberry Park. Are we still trying to get it to float?
Well, there's a lot of water down there, so it's floating. There's a big homeless encampment down there too that we're working on trying to remove.
I thought maybe it had come back.
No, here's the deal. So those of you that don't know, the city owns land that was an old blueberry farm, and the way you access it, I probably shouldn't even tell you because you're illegally accessing it, is through Lockburn Middle School. Go through Lockburn and you go down this big, steep, slippery hill to this area. And the city bought it a long time ago, thinking as mitigation for Fleck Creek because flooding and stuff. But if you looked at an aerial, there's all these rows. So there's, I think there were 350 plants. No, 500 plants. And so the goal was to cut back like 100 plants a year. And by the time you got to the 5th year, the first 3 years of plants would be really productive. There is so much work down there. We would have, so we did the first 2 years. We went down there and gutted the area out and put, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tons of chips. Laid cardboard and put chips, and laid cardboard and put chips. And we would get like whole military groups out there to do like a cleanup day, and they would never come back. It was brutal work. And so we just don't have the resources, and we just couldn't get the program up where it was a safe, accessible way to get there. So the idea is someday, because it's on the list along with the orchard at Fort Stoughton Park, someday we're going to get the right group of folks and the right equipment to do that. But I think we would access it instead of going through the middle school, which is a challenge because schools are closed most of the time, is that on Lakewood Drive, that the Echelon apartments are on Lakewood Drive, kind of across from one of the fire stations. But on the Lakewood Drive, there's this weird little triangle of property. And if we were to use that as the parking lot and the access, it'll take some work, but you could get in on that side. But it's still, there's so much water down there. It's constantly up to your knees. And I don't know what to do about that. So there were just too many other projects that we had to put on the front burner. So that's still on the back burner, but we do own a blueberry farm. And people go down there and pick blueberries.
I just thought of another question. The city of Tacoma manages the watershed from the pumping station in the cemetery down to Lakewood Drive. But from Lakewood Drive to Bridgeport, along Flat Creek there, is that Pierce County?
I think the area you're talking about, is that the part that's across from Clover Park Technical College?
No, on Lakewood Drive, the Fletch Creek comes down from the cemetery through there, and it crosses under the bridge right by Oasis Church and down through and goes over to Bridgeport. And so the city of Tacoma has spent a lot of money in the watershed from the bridge east, I guess that would be. But I don't think anything has been done on the watershed from the bridge to the east, basically. And so it's just north, the area north of Blueberry Park. All that.
Yeah, we own some of it. And I'm not that sure. I'll check with our swim folks. Maybe I'll check on that for you, and maybe we could get a map and circle the area you're talking about. And I can find out more about it, but they are constantly working on stormwater management in those areas for flooding, and there's some things going on, but I'm not that familiar with the program, so I don't.
I was just wondering if they managed that and got the flow in there kind of squared away, if it wouldn't help Blueberry Park.
I don't know. That's a great question. I'm not sure the answer, so I don't know that much about it.
That's
Sorry.
it. I'm done.
And I like your vandals back there. My son went to University of Idaho, so I see your vandals. Go Vandals.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions? Well, if not, we'll thank Mary. Thank you very much.
Have a nice day, you guys. Be well.
Thank you. You too.
See ya.
And we will move on to Councilmember Brandstetter for his comments.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here. It's early in the year. We don't have a lot of comments. I think on the public safety side, one of the things where they were really doing, we're tracking a variety of pieces of legislation that are in the state legislature right now that are public safety related, and they tend to be the questions about tweaks to legislation from the last session. There's about 7 active bills addressing a variety of topics, but none of them have actually been passed through the legislature or been sent to the governor. They're all still working through committees, and as they are in committees, they are getting tweaked. And a few of them will probably be passed and some of them will not. I think that by the time we meet the next time in a couple of months, we'll know how that legislative environment relates to public safety has changed, and that will, hopefully there will be some changes that are positive. The other thing is that the city has brought on board and swore in earlier this year almost 20 new police officers, a mix of lateral officers coming from other departments to Lakewood, as well as 10 new officers that are joining Lakewood and then need to get to the academy and will be able to fully operational, by the late in the year after they've worked their way through it. But the bios of the new officers are very varied. Bring both diversity, not just of who the people are, but of the skills that they bring. They bring a good mix of skills, and I think that when you think that 20 officers is about 20% of the department, it's setting a stage for some of the long-term culture in the department that on a scale that we maybe haven't seen since we formed the department and brought on 80 officers in that period of time. Yes, the only other thing that I'll tell you is of what a couple of things that I don't know is that with respect to fireworks, we do have an adjusted fireworks ordinance that's going to be in effect for this 4th of July that limits fireworks to a single day during that period. I think at Summerfest, we're going to be highlighting, looking at a community, not a fireworks display, because we don't quite have the safe area to do that, but the equivalent of it using drones, having a drone exposition that it would be very similar to a community fireworks display that we're looking that perhaps will be a catalyst for some folks forsaking their own personal fireworks to take advantage of that. And whether that would be something we could then expand in future years to create that. But that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Councilmember Brandstetter? Okay, Scott, you're on, Fire Department.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Great to see everyone in the new year. Last time we chatted in December, we were kind of looking at getting close to opening things back up a little bit and having some in-person classes for the community, but that quickly got shut down. So we're back to status quo with things closed up. We did participate in some holiday events. As Mary talked about, we had a couple of apparatus there with some firefighters at the reverse parade. We also did an event that first Wednesday where we had a drive-through event by one of our stations, and we had a food drive, and kids could drop off letters to Santa. So that was kind of fun for the kids. We also handed out safety bags with that. We closed out 2021 with the highest call volume that West Pierce has ever had. We had 17,776 calls, which is about 49 calls a day. And as far as the mix between Lakewood and University Place, Lakewood is about 2/3, if not just a little bit more as far as call volume. So, 2 to 1, so to speak. And if the board has any suggestions on how I read out some of our calls, if you have anything you want to pass on to Joanna, specifics that you'd like to see, calls, it's like maybe to adult family homes or things like that. So if you have any specific items you want me to report on, I'm happy to do that. We had a couple of fires in Lakewood recently. One of them that was very unique is the fire. We couldn't make entry through the front door. And so firefighters actually had the individual on the phone, and we knew where to go. So they utilized some tactics and cut an exterior hole in the on the side of the house and made access through the bedroom. And we were able to get a patient out. So that was a good save there. We have a recruit class going on, and for the first time ever, we're actually teaching our own EMT class, Karen.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, with COVID and everything, those classes have been getting shut down quite a bit with kids and new recruits getting sick. And so this is a way for us to kind of control that a little bit more and be able to do that in-house. So that's a really good thing for us. I've talked about last year about a connected cares position that we're hiring. We did hire a gal, her name's Karen Gilbert, and she'll have the position of a connected cares position. She was a nurse with multi-care for the last 25 years doing case management. And that position primarily is going to be helping us with frequent 911 callers and mental health patients, so we can help get them help and free up crews. Sometimes those calls take quite a bit of time to get through. And so having this person mostly during the day, Monday through Friday, helping us with some of that caseload is going to be able to free up crews a little bit more. And then remember too, we still can offer all of our services as far as smoke alarms, bike helmets, and things like that. So if anyone needs anything, just call our business line and we'll be able to get someone to help you. And that's the same with safety presentations. I know some of the neighborhood meetings that have been going on, especially like over at Lake City, they're still doing some virtual stuff, but we're still trying to push out and do some safety presentations for those groups too. So if you know of any groups that might need someone to come talk about some different topics, we're happy to coordinate that. And that's about it. We've got our annual report that's coming out this next month. That'll be available on our website, westpierce.org. And happy to hear that Summerfest is going to be up and going this year. So that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I have a
Anyone
quick one.
question? Terry, Mark.
Yes. Yeah, it was a while back. I think, in fact, it was last year actually that we went over the disaster plan. I think there was some input from the council here, kind of or just advice basically. I was just kind of wondering where that lies at.
Disaster plan? Is it the coalition that the cities have put together? I know John's part of that. Is that what you're referencing?
I think so. It's been about a year or so, but I know that there was some that we had looked over the disaster plan for the city, and I believe it involved. I think it was like a collaboration from other cities, and I know we played a part in that. I was just kind of curious where that was at. Is that kind of been signed off and adopted now, or?
Yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with it. I know John works with one of our deputy chiefs, Helen McCurdy. Yes, University Place, Lakewood, and now Stillicum are part of that coalition. I don't know, John, if does that sound what he's talking about?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. We are part of the Emergency Management Coalition, West Pierce, which includes West Pierce Fire, UP, and Stillicum now, officially as of 1st of this year. We worked last year to sign an agreement with them, but it didn't take effect until January 1. So they're officially on board. And then last year, we were working on our hazard mitigation plan and our comprehensive emergency management plan. The hazard mitigation plan, and that was a joint plan then as the coalition versus individual plans from each city. So that's kind of the benefit, is that added efficiency. So the hazard mitigation plan was approved by the state and FEMA and the city council, and then our CEMP is at state EMD right now, and it's pending the director's signature. And so far, they haven't sent us any feedback on it, so that should be good. And again, that's a joint coalition plan amongst this whole service area.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, then we'll move along and ask John to continue and give us police comments.
Thank you. I'm just going to touch really quick on homeless. Kind of came up through that parks discussion, and that's something that we're constantly working on. There's kind of some good news and bad news, and some good news. The bad news is that our staffing kind of took a hit towards the end of last year, and so we had to pull several of our neighborhood police officers from their assignment and put them back into patrol. The only one we have left is the officer that's assigned to the behavioral health contact team currently. So we had one MPO who was doing nothing but homeless issues for the most part, and he was now back in patrol. So that's the bad news. The good news is that, as Councilmember Brandstetter mentioned, we have hired 20 new officers. And so some of those are laterals, they'll get out quicker than others. Entry level will take a while, but we'll start feeding people back into those positions that we had to vacate to staff patrol. So that's going to put people back in there. The other good news is that the partnership with City of Tacoma and Lehigh, the Low Income Housing Institute, has opened a homeless transition shelter called Aspen Court over on Hosmer. The city of Lakewood has 12 beds, and currently we have 10 of those filled. This is not an emergency overnight shelter that you think of where you just show up and spend the night type of thing. There's a little bit stricter admitting policies, but it's geared towards getting people in, getting them stabilized, figuring out what services they need, and then eventually transitioning them into full-time housing. And so we have, it was great during that cold snap, right? In the year, we got, I think, 6 or 8 people off the streets and into that housing. And like I said, we have 10 in there now. And so it's brand new. We're continuing to work with Lehigh on streamlining that process and getting people in. And our behavioral health contact team is taking the lead on that. And so that's very encouraging. Otherwise, with the police department, body cameras, all of our marked units have in-car video and have for some time, but we are deploying body worn cameras to all of our uniformed staff, and at times some of our plainclothes staff when they're out in the field making contacts. And so we signed, we just got the equipment, and we signed an agreement with the Officers Guild to do a pilot program for 90 days. We agreed on the policy, draft policy. We'll get the equipment and the training. That end up pushing it back to the end of the month. So probably in March, we'll actually start deploying body cameras. And then our goal is to hopefully have everybody outfitted with those. We went with Covan, who is the manufacturer of our in-car video. So the nice thing is it integrates automatically with the existing infrastructure that we have. So we'll have to install a docking station for the body camera. So the officer will take the camera off, stick it in the docking in their car. It'll get married up with the in-car video for that incident. They flag it with the case number, and then it uploads onto a server here at the city. And then it's all, tied together. It's the same equipment, same infrastructure. So we'll be working on that this year. And then lastly, we signed a contract with Code Red. I've been working with a number of other cities. So everybody in the West Pierce Emergency Management Coalition, the city of Tacoma, and the east side of the county also has a coalition. They call themselves EPIC, East Pierce something coalition, but it's Puyallup, and there's 7 cities total. So Ording, Buckley, Bonnie Lake, Carbonado, Wilkeson, Sumner. I think that's all of them. But anyways, all of us have been working. We work with Code Red to negotiate a contract. And what Code Red is a public mass notification system. And it's a vendor, and it's one of several, out there. But ultimately, we will be able to do everything from what's considered iPause or wireless emergency alerts. So those are those, when your phone starts buzzing, and that loud, annoying buzz for an Amber Alert or something, we will be able to send those directly ourselves. We can do a reverse 911. So we can draw a circle on a map and send out messages to any registered phone, landline in that area. And then we're going to ask residents to sign up for the service. And then anybody who is signed up will get those alerts. So that's kind of for the emergency. If we have, say, a hazardous materials fire, like we had it over at Sales Road and 512 at the beginning of last year, or, barricaded a subject, police activity, something like that, we can send out various types of messages in a variety of ways: email, cell phone, text, voicemail, whatever. The other nice piece of it is that it has community notifications. So you can sign up for the system and we can send out non-emergency things. So we'll have a category for road construction, one for parks, city events, and you can choose what you want to receive and what you don't. And then you can get those messages as well, just kind of informational, low level stuff. And then also we can use it internally for our city staff. We can set up contact groups and use that to immediately notify people, with different alerts. So you will see that in your Lakewood Connections that is being published now and should hit your mailbox in March. And so we'll be doing a lot of public marketing this year for that, trying to encourage our citizens to sign up for that. The nice thing is, like I said, Stillcomb, University Place, us, and Tacoma, as well as Puyallup and a lot of the east side of the county, are all going to use the same system. And so if you sign up for it and you download the app on your phone and you are in Tacoma and you drive through an area where there's an alert issued, it's going to zap your phone and alert you, or Puyallup or wherever you may be. So it's a really robust system. We're really happy with it. And the best news is that South Sound 911, our dispatch agency, is going to pay for it. So we're actually getting it completely free, which is a nice bargain. So that'll be coming out. We're pretty excited about that. And then our annual report will be coming out end of February as well. So I think at the next meeting, if you haven't read it already, we'll be presenting fourth quarter stats and then our end of year report. And that is all I have. Questions?
Questions?
Yes, I've got one. The code red, congratulations on getting that implemented. How is it going to interface with the Pierce County Emergency Management System? There's some of us that would be interested in being on both notification systems. So is there some kind of an operational agreement to make sure there's not redundant messages or conflicting information or anything like that going on?
No, they use a different vendor, Everbridge, and they call their system PC Alert. We're calling ours Lakewood Alert. So we're kind of sticking with the naming convention. We're going to encourage people to sign up for both, just because there may be overlap. It may be a countywide event, and they may send info out, and then we're just going to have to deconflict that incident by incident in terms of sending information out. But the information that they send out will be more general. They wouldn't be giving directions to Lakewood people individually. We'll handle that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Mark? You're on mute, Mark.
Thought I unmuted it. So, okay. This has to do with traffic. One is, what is the magnetic draw of vehicles to the Lakewood sign there at Bridgeport and South Tacoma Way? I mean, it seems like that sign is continuously getting hit by traffic. And then along that same lines of the T intersection of 88th and I think it's Custard. There's a T intersection there. I drive by that pretty much almost every day, and I kind of count the days to see how often or how long that railing system will actually last. Because I have seen that railing system taken out so many times to the point where I've seen it replaced and I think taken out like 2 weeks later and stuff, just because of that intersection. You got two left turns turning off of, I think, Custard on or 88th onto Custard and stuff. So it seems to me like, especially that intersection. In fact, I feel for the property owners that are straight ahead of that T, because I think there was an accident where there was a vehicle almost up into their house at one point. So it seems kind of that's something as an engineered flaw or a speed issue or something right there at that intersection. And then going back to, again, Bridgeport and South Tacoma Way, I was almost curious to how fast the vehicle could be going to actually like do almost like a Dukes of Hazzard through the sign, Lakewood sign. It's just, I mean, there had to have been some entertaining or interesting photos of that. So.
Yeah, I don't think we had video of it. We had some pictures of it. And unfortunately, that sign, we've got a couple of them that are in the center of the roadway. 100 and South Tacoma Way is another one. And so, yeah, it was hit by a drunk driver back in December. pretty much totaled the whole sign. And then it just got hit here recently within the last week. So I don't know how the insurance company is going to work out. Anytime there's a damage to city property, we go after the insurance company. So the drunk driver did have insurance and we make a claim. And so his insurance company is going to be paying for a new sign. Now that it was hit a second time, I don't know if the insurance company is going to have to argue that one out. But I do know that the city is going to take a look at the design of that to see if that they can somehow put some different curbing or something in there to sort of protect that a little bit more. Yeah, it should not be hit. There's a curb and then a little bit of space before you hit that. So even if you were driving the speed limit, you should get veered off before you do that much damage. But if you're drunk and plow through it,
It seems like you've been to if you're going to the left lane, you're making a left turn, but the road bends to the right and then comes back, I guess, more or less straight there. So it's almost like a flaw there per se, because to me, if I'm driving coming up to it, I'm doing the speed limit, I'm fine. But it seems like if somebody's going to try to rush the light or something like that, it's like they're caught off guard because they have to go to the right. And if they don't go to right, they're pushing the vehicles to the left, probably likely off into that direction. Because I know I've seen that sign hit, other than these last two you're just discussing, I've seen it hit previously before that. So it seems like maybe cars are pushing other cars off into it, or it's a speed factor, obviously. But that, and like I said, the one on the 88th and Custer it's almost ridiculous that the point that the number of times that railing system is taken out.
Yeah. So like I said, Bridgeport and Pacific Highway, they're going to look at the design before they rebuild that sign, and to address what you're talking about. 88 and Custer, yeah, have had a discussion with our public works director, and the explanation is really, this is sort of what Lakewood inherited from the county, was these weird, funky intersections with bad angles that were not designed. And really some of that dates back to, the settler days and the roads, and then they just sort of kept getting built on after that. If you look just to the north, the owner of the house has put up those big concrete blocks,
Yep.
ecology blocks, to protect the front of his house or property. I talked to our public works director, why don't we put some big, concrete bulwarks in there? But the problem is, even if somebody is, drunk, breaking the law, going too fast, whatever, and they hit those and come to a sudden stop, if those bulwarks don't meet traffic safety standards, then the city can be liable for causing the vehicle to stop too suddenly, and the injuries, therefrom. So that's why they keep putting up the railing system, because it's designed to absorb the impact. Yeah, it's going to have to be replaced, as opposed to, say, the ecology blocks, although I've seen those be moved too. But they have looked at it. If you look, they put the center plastic poles in there and some rumble strips, and that was in response to the property owner at the end who had complained to the city. So they've looked at it and tried to do as best they can, but it's really, and that's maybe, a question for the public works director to explain the engineering side of it, but really until they can figure out a way to make that 90 less than a 90, they're going to have that problem there. But that is why they don't put anything more substantial there. So they replace the railing because it does absorb the impact of the crash. Kind of like your front bumper, does a lot of damage and you have to replace that, but it does what it's designed to do.
You say there are some rumble strips there, and this may be just a legal aspect there, but I was driving in Mexico, and I was taking note of some of the things they had there, and some of the things they had in place was a lot of speed humps, not bumps, but humps there to slow traffic down in certain spots there, like where a lot of pedestrians or people vacationing there. And particularly when you come along near a crosswalk or something, they'd have these speed humps in place like that. And they were well marked and stuff. So you were cognizant of, if you're going to hit that thing at a speed, you're going to tear out the bottom of your vehicle. And at the end of the day, it's either that or, as much as I kind of disdain them, is putting in a traffic circle there and something, because you're just not going to do away with that 90. That 90 is going to be there, or you're just going to have to bring it in and curve it in and do some kind of a circle or something. But I would say it's comical, but it's not. To watch how often the damage or the vehicle accidents occur there and stuff. So
Yeah, and I agree. And it is, it's on Public Works' radar. And so they analyze the data, our crash data at all the intersections and look at the highest numbers and focus on those. And that is one that they have addressed in the past. They restriped it, widened it a little bit. And I'll have to check what traffic was. I think they dropped the speed limit actually 5 or 10 miles an hour right as you come into that, trying to slow people down. So I'll double check on that. Make sure that we're doing enforcement out there.
thank you.
John, I have a couple questions. One
Sure.
is, any predictions on how many officers are going to be retiring? We just brought in 20 who'll go through, work into the department. Are more officers planning to leave?
Well, we actually did a retirement survey back in 2013 and then another one in 2020. The one in 2020 predicted 13 retirements last year, and we had 12. So far it's been pretty accurate. This year, next year predicted 6 and then 7 retirements, and then another 13 in 2024. So we are in that band. We've talked about it before. When we started the department, we had a lot of veteran officers come in as the bulk. So we have a huge, band that is just reaching retirement age. However, we also did give out a retention bonus. So officers who commit to 3 years before retiring or resigning, were eligible for that bonus. So that's going to push, I think, a lot of people out to the end of 2024. So actually 2025. So they have to stay until December of 2024. So you got 26 people who, 2 years ago said they were going to retire by 2024. A lot of those are going to stay. But then I think we're going to have a sharper wave in 2025 once that retention bonus expires. However, the city manager has authorized us to overhire by 10. And so we're going to be able, over the next 3 years, to ramp up and get ahead of the game versus being behind.
Thank you. On the hotel on Hosmer that was purchased, how long can people stay there before they're going to filter back into the homeless area?
Well, that's kind of a tough question. I don't think there's a set length. The goal is they have case managers there that work with them. There's different programs for different people based on, their needs and their status, whether they have mental health issues or are they, a veteran, do they have access to other sources of funding. So the goal is to get them out. They can leave at any time. They might be removed from the program if they violate the rules and head back. It's counterintuitive, but a lot of those experiencing homeless, that we come across, it's rough living out on the streets, but they appreciate the freedom. So that transition of being out on the streets, doing whatever you want, when you want, to coming inside, even with, a motel room that's nice and furnished and meals and laundry and everything else. But that's confining to them because of the rules. So there's a lot of paths in. Well, there's one path in, but there's a lot of paths out. Some can be on to good things and others can be back out to where they started. So, and, I would expect that it may take several times for some people to get in, try to get some services, stabilize. They might, fail for some reason and go back out, and we'll just keep getting them back in. So it's really hard to pin down on that.
Thank you. Any other questions? No other questions? No. Thank you, John. We're going to let you off easy.
All right, I'll take it. Thank you.
Okay, we don't have a youth council representative, so we'll skip that. Unfinished business.
I think we have 2 issues under unfinished business. Unless I missed it, we were supposed to get a survey for
Yes.
whether we want to
Meeting.
change dates or not. I didn't see that. And also, we were committed to help do training about the new fireworks laws. Now, July's coming up pretty quick. I just kind of wondering where we're at on that.
Okay. First question, the meeting date and chime. That was really Teresa's issue. She works at Patriots Landing, and with the COVID pandemic, they're going through some staffing challenges, so she's been working regular. She was supposed to be off tonight, she thought, but obviously she isn't here. One thing we'd like to do is find out, is there any flexibility on days of the week that we can meet? Like Monday is out because that's a city council meeting. But the other days of the week, is there any flexibility? Does anyone have restrictions for Tuesday?
Well, and for the record, the last email I got from Teresa was telling me not to send out a survey because they had hired somebody and she was going to be able to attend on Wednesdays after all.
Okay,
So unless somebody else has a conflict or we just want to see if we want to do a different one, she seems to think that that problem got resolved
she thinks it's resolved. Okay.
or is about to be.
Does anyone want to change? Everyone comfortable with meeting on Wednesday nights? Continuing. We originally grabbed Wednesday nights at 5:15 because that was one of our original members worked, and that was the earliest he could make the meeting. So it was set at 5:15. He couldn't make 5 o'clock, so we set 5:15, and it was Wednesday simply because it was Wednesday. So there's nothing fixed in stone about this if we, as a committee, vote to change. Okay. So if anyone has problems, please let Joanna know. Okay, the next issue, fireworks education. Nothing has been done on that, as to my knowledge. So I'm going to table that and put it on the agenda for next meeting, unless somebody wants to volunteer to work on it. Do we have any volunteers? I hear none, so we'll table it till the next meeting then. Okay,
Yeah, Alan, I would just say that there is going to be something about that in the upcoming Connections magazine that will come out before our next meeting. Then based upon what's there, then there may be something to build on.
okay, great, thank you. Okay, then the next issue is new business. We have one new, we have preview of the next meeting, which is going to be on red light cameras. Joanna, do we have a speaker lined up for red light cameras that you know of?
Sorry, I have to look at, I think I'm gonna work on getting the Public Works speaker for that
Okay.
one. I think that
Good.
was who we decided.
Yes.
So, okay.
Okay, so it'll be red light cameras. Okay, and the other issue we have is Summerfest. Summerfest is coming up in July. Do we want to do go back to doing the dunk tank?
Well, who gets dunked?
Police officers.
Yeah,
John,
Police officers and
that's my
firefighters.
first question.
Police
Yeah.
officers and firefighters, usually.
I think there's some firefighters in there.
Yeah,
well, everybody wants to line up to do John though, so we earn a lot of money from him.
I'd say we ought to try it, but we need participation from the members of the group.
Okay, I did get an email from Teresa volunteering to lead a subcommittee to work on that issue. But we need volunteers. We need volunteers, one who have access to JBLM, who can reserve the dunk tank that we use and get it and deliver it. And two, we're going to need volunteers to man it like in 2-hour shifts on that particular Saturday.
I'll help set it up. If I think James is, are you going to get it for us or make arrangements?
I can do that, but Ray tried it. Ray, were you going to do that last time? Isn't it your turn?
It is, I will.
Okay.
Well,
It's Ray's turn, and I'll help too, but
yeah,
it's
I'll
Ray's
help
turn.
set it up, and I can even help man it. I'll
Okay.
probably be there anyway, so at the car show. So
Okay. Well, I will, Ray, I
Sure.
will volunteer you and Mark to Teresa and ask her to get in touch with you to make arrangements.
Okay. And just for information, as you plan in the future, depending on who checks it out to you, sometimes you have to take a short training class on how to deploy it and how to handle it and what they expect, but it's not long.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to be calling on people then to, when Teresa gets organized, to sign up for 2-hour shifts. So we have somebody to collect and handle the money, and also somebody to handle making sure the officers get dunked properly when the kids come up. Okay?
And in the planning part, a few times back, it was uncertain exactly where we were going to set up. One time, I've done this about 5 times over the last 12 years. One time, the water we released came back into an area that was in use. So you got to pick a floodplain, and you got to coordinate closely with the fire department on getting the water supply, so it's all timed in.
We're going to volunteer Scott to deliver the fire department and get us water, if that's okay, Scott.
No problem. Put my name in whoever's phone. If it's Ray or Mark or whatever, you can text me. I'll be out there helping crews get set up, and we can make sure that water happens. And if we need help, I can help man too if you need it. So whatever you need.
Someone needs to coordinate with the fest committee to make sure that we get that particular piece of land that drains downhill and away from everything else. So
Right.
that's the
That's
key,
my
getting
job.
the right spot.
Hey, Alan, do we need anybody to pick up extra ice for the water?
I usually
I was
like
going to ask for heated water this year.
I prefer dry ice when John gets in.
It's okay.
We don't want to limit it to just our uniform wearers, because a few years back, I got Doug Richardson while he was mayor. I mean, we can get some other locally famous or infamous people.
Okay. Okay, so we've done that issue. The next item then is our reports on community outreach. Anyone have any reports on the community groups?
North Lakewood met last Tuesday night, and most of the stuff that we covered was covered. We got a report on the update on the policing staffing. The officers were all reelected to another year. And I think that was, the lady who lives at the outlet of Stillicum Lake on the creek there. She thanked everybody, the city and everybody that kind of got together and cleared up her homeless guy out there. And I guess a lot of people cleaned up the area, and she's tickled to death. So that's it.
And then
Okay.
the emergency food net, emergency food distribution support,
Oh, yes. I forgot about that.
Rotary focused one.
They're
Okay.
kind of looking for somebody to help restock, volunteer to restock the pantries. And they've got, how many of them, Ray? There's 8 or 10 of them?
Yeah, and they got a couple more places that are going to be available soon.
Yeah.
Now, is that done in conjunction with Rotary? Rotary stocks pantries, works with Springbrook.
Yes, but they restock them all, from what I understood, but they're getting more of them, and they need help to go for when they store the stuff to the little pantries.
Right, okay. Okay, anything else? Anyone have any other comments or discussion? Well. if
Ellen,
not-
real quick, if we're gonna have somebody on the red light aspect, can we also maybe along that same topic, bring up about the school zones and the speed limits and stuff there? Because I know that was a hot topic on the last meeting. So that was
I
definitely.
believe they're both listed.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that was discussed too, because I know that was one of the near and dear topics there.
Yeah, I think they're related topics. Good point.
Yeah, I've got both listed.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I will hear a motion to adjourn then.
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Be safe.
Okay.